What's going on, everyone? Great Talon here, and today the prey is going to be, well, let's just say before Dark Souls, or Bloodborne, or yes, even Sekiro melted our faces off with coining the phrase, get good. There was another video game series out there which may have been overlooked by some, but nevertheless needs to be documented and remembered as being possibly the hardest video game of all time. That, folks, is where Tecmo's Team Ninja Gaiden comes into the fray. First releasing on the NES in 1990, close to the end of the NES's life cycle, just 1 year before the Super Nintendo was born, this little side-scrolling foray of pain, suffering, and death became the staple in Tecmo's ninja-based franchise that would eventually run up until the last entry in the series, which might have been the final nail in the coffin, which was Yaiba Ninja Gaiden Z. Ugh. I shudder at the sound and the thought of this game, which was pretty much an anime-inspired Ninja Gaiden game, which actually almost killed the series, receiving such horrible reviews and reception. Even received such horrible reviews that websites like Games Radar ranked in their top 50 worst games of all time list, where it came in at number 46. Yikes. But before that atrocity emerged, most Ninja Gaiden titles were known 2D and 3D alike for having relentless difficulty and challenge, with the exception of Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, which was watered down quite a bit on the challenge side. But anyway, alas, let us remember the good yet frustrating times, starting right here with the original and yet brutal first entry into the 2-decade-plus franchise Ninja Gaiden. Anyway, graphics are up first. Depending on which version you're playing, whether it be the original NES cartridge or on an emulator, which I was via the Switch Online app, this little 8-bit sprites offer a unique and colorful look that sees you traverse underground caverns, villages, and even upon tall buildings. However, with that being said, the character models I noticed were quite lacking at times in regards to detail. I mean, I know it's Nintendo, folks, but some enemies and even the ninja you play as Ryu Hayabusa, looks generically designed for the most part, while in actual gameplay. During the cutscenes, however, though, which is in between the game's 6 acts, which tells the story, the characters are much more detailed and portrayed and drawn. Some enemy models are actually somewhat more enhanced than the main character you play as, which perplexed me a bit too. Sure, you can chalk up this to the NES's hardware limitations at the time, but in 1990 I somewhat expected a little bit more from the hardware that has been on the market for almost 5 years already. Some elemental sprites also from power-ups did look relatively decent though. However, as well as the other upgrades you get, such as Ninja Stars and Shoryuken, do look well drawn and well rendered as well. It's a pretty good looking game, don't get me wrong. I'm just nitpicking here because like we're going to get to next with the gameplay and control section, you're going to see there's a little hiccups here and there that require you to be airtight and precise. A little too much for my taking. Next up is gameplay and control. So Ninja Gaiden is a side-scrolling 2D action game at its heart that offers a relentlessly difficult challenge and forces you to channel your inner ninja-like reflexes to soldier through the waves of enemies that keep tossing at you on screen at once that never seem to stop coming at you. You are equipped with a simple sword and you can obtain power-ups from vases and other objects such as lanterns in each level. The power-ups range from ninja stars to elemental magic such as fire nympho and homing shurikens. All power-ups have finite ammo that you can replenish by breaking more pots, vases, and lanterns to obtain magic jars and refuel your secondary attack. You can also wall climb and wall jump and even pull off a nifty wall ricochet move if you time your jump properly. These are all the tools you get that will aid you in the battle against the unforgiving droves of foes that will never cease to stop pursuing you unless you freaking make it to the next screen or the end of the stage. All enemies, with the exception of the bosses, die in one hit, at least though, and the damage you take from enemies varies on the attack they're using. If it's a simple scratch from their weapon or sword, you may lose 2 bars of HP, but if it's from an elemental attack or a gun, you may lose 3 to 4 bars of HP. There is a boss at the end of each act, which will test your utmost commitment and constitution, as if you die at all during the boss and lose all of your lives, it's back to the start of the initial part of the act for you. Therein lies the true challenge of this game. It is set up like a gauntlet-style game, which means for the most part of the game, it expects you to be perfect and make it from start to finish of each act by just using 3 lives without continuing and getting a game over screen, being the best mother-loving ninja you can along the way. The final Act 6 is probably the hardest act or stage in any video game to date, and I will fight anyone to the death who says otherwise. Forget Dark Souls, forget Bloodborne, hell even forget Sekiro, and picture having to kill a 3-phase boss with a finite amount of HP, 3 continues, no power-ups, and if you fail at all during any of the final boss's 3 phases, it's back to the front of Act 6-1. And there are 5 subsections within Act 6. It's insane. Relentless and ruthless this game is indeed. But does the sense of accomplishment outweigh the inevitable amount of frustration you receive whilst playing? Well, yes and no. And what I mean by that is, until you get up to the final act, the reward outweighs the frustration, yes, for sure. But once you tried Act 6, like a friend of mine did, and you can't get past a certain section for years upon end, on like the original NES version, not an emulator, because an emulator you could just do save states, which I did because I'm a little bitch, but whatever. So I mean, it just, once you get, like I said though, when Act 6 though, the frustration will outweigh the reward, unfortunately, which is why it hurts to score a bit for me with this game. I mean, it's a relentless challenge, but the only way I was honestly and truly able to beat this game, like I said, is on a form of emulation, because I was not about to brick another one of my fucking controllers trying and dying in Act 6 a bajillion times on end to no avail. And even on emulation, I found myself swearing and cursing up a storm at times for some rather pungent bullshit moments, which come in the form of the game's controls. Now, the controls, when used properly and timed pinpoint accurately and airtight, like the freaking infallible ninja you are, work in your favor. However, like the imperfect creatures that we are as humans, when you do not move the D-pad a certain way at a certain time in tandem with pressing the jump or attack button just right, you're gonna have a really fucking bad time. I can't tell you how many times during a boss fight I jumped in one direction and could have sworn I was facing the boss, and the game told me, nope, turn around, and I ended up getting spanked. Another issue I had with the controls is with the wall climbing and sticking to the walls. Countless times I had to time my jumps and do them over and over again because making it to a higher platform was really, really difficult and trying. Also, especially during boss fights, you tend to cling to the wall, when you don't want to. Like your freaking Spider-Man, when you just want to dodge out of the way and just so happen to be too close to the wall and end up climbing in a climbing pose while stuck on it. Ugh, it's so annoying. If it wasn't for the game so demanding that you be perfect like a freaking robot, then the controls wouldn't have been half bad. Instead, they are passable at best. Next up is story, narrative, and campaign. So even for the hardware limitations of the NES for its time, I have to hand it to Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden actually delivers a coherent implemented story for the most part, which is delivered during vibrant cutscene slides in between each act. The story follows a ninja you play as named Ryu Hayabusa, who sets out on a journey to seek revenge for the murder of his father, and slowly unfolds into a plot to, of course, destroy the world. The campaign is split up into 6 acts, like I said before, each of which ends in a boss fight and has approximately 3 subsections per act. For example, Act 1 has 3 subsections. Apologies, I mean Act 1 has 1 subsection, Act 2 has 2 subsections, and as you get further into the game, it goes up to 3 and 4 and 5 and even 6 subsections when you get to Act 6, and it just drags on the challenge, and it's just ridiculous. And then you have to actually fight the boss section before moving on to the next act. And it's pretty much cut and dry from here, and as you can see, you get into a boss fight at the end of the Act 2 here, and it just counts as a subsection as well. So as unforgiving as Ninja Gaiden is in terms of difficulty, the looping delightful tunes here help soothe the beast within, as you'll find yourself humming and getting the themes from each stage stuck inside your head. And even the dying death sound is made, that's made whenever you die is catchy. Sound effects from weapons, enemies, and objects are fairly decent, but nothing to really write home about or make noteworthy. The music is at its strongest suit, and I feel that will at least make the ravenously challenging experience worthwhile while undertaking each brutal section that the game offers. Okay, so now in terms of replay value, depending on your tolerance for suffering, I say that if you're a persistent person who won't let a piece of digital software tell you that you can't win, then you'll find the replay value to be tremendously high here. Especially for you speedrunners out there who can take down this monster in under 30 minutes and have reflexes comparable to that of a Jedi Master, or Jedi Ninja Master in this case. But if you're like me and once you inch your way and chip away to the final boss and credits, you'll find the replayability just moderately low, and just be thankful you had some ability and were freaking adept enough to make it to the end of the journey before locking it away in your vault, never to be seen or heard from again, or at least for a very, very good amount of time. Okay, now my overall score here, I'm going to have to do it just below an 8 this time. I know I've been giving games an 8 a lot lately. It's just a drop below an 8. It's a 7.5 for me. Now, why is it a 7.5 instead of an 8? Sadly, while the game represents a vigorously stupendous challenge, the score for me hindered by the performance, controls, and visuals. It seems like it with a bit more polish and the sprites could have at least popped out or stood out a bit more. Other than that, the controls demand you to be perfect and not skip a beat or be punished in full for your insolence or of having a human error and having the human condition. On the flip side, when the game is at its best, it excels in the music and combat department, with providing you with such a challenge and overall reward that blows the feeling of self-accomplishment out of the water when comparing it to modern-day titles like the Soulsborne or Sekiro game. Seriously though, anyone who experiences the original Ninja Gaiden and even up to Ninja Gaiden 2 or Sigma on the Xbox 360 or PS3 alike will know the true definition of hardship to a video game that tests your reflexes, endurance, and sheer will to soldier through until its bitter end. And with that being said, that's my review of the original classic Ninja Gaiden retro throwback review. So what'd you guys think? If you like it, give it a thumbs up. Why not comment and subscribe? I'll be doing a lot more of these as I'm dipping into the digital library of the Switch online app, and also I've got Castlevania collection now. I'm going to be doing some Castlevania reviews next, so be on the lookout for that. And with that being said, you guys have a great day. Thank you so much for the love and support, and we'll catch you guys later.